I think a good next question would be, okay, well, so you mentioned digging in those feelings and stuff. So like one thing you and I talk a lot about is useful tools for navigating feelings as a man, like seeing feelings as indicators. Could you elaborate on that? How can somebody, start to get into that stuff? Because a lot of us guys have no idea how to. It's scary and foreign.
Thoughts in and of themselves are neutral. They are just things. They are just what the mind does. The same way that the ears hear, the eyes see, the nose smells, the mind thinks. I think where I've experienced the most sense of relief and that sense of ease and lightness in my life, and where I now see it working with hundreds of other people, is when they come to the realization that they don't actually need to pay that much attention to their thoughts. It's not that they're not necessarily telling you something useful, beyond telling you, like, beyond helping you make a to-do list or how to cook an omelet. A lot of it is really just chatter. I kind of think of the mind and that chatter and those thoughts that come from the mind, especially those negative rumination type of thoughts, as like a little squawk box. Imagine you have, a football stadium, and there's this little tiny radio in the corner, and everyone's huddled around the radio because they think that that's where the action is, not realizing that there's this entire freaking stadium and that's where life is, and that's where life's going on. So again, the problem is not necessarily thoughts, positive or negative. It's our over attendance to them that really gets us stuck looping in them. And so, okay, so what do we pay attention to instead? Well, feelings, on the other hand, are your body's sensation. They're much more in the body than in the mind. And I think that a much better proxy for whether we're on track or off track or moving forward or stagnating is our feelings. How comfortable, how relaxed, how at ease do you feel? And realizing that also feelings and emotions are information. I think when we start to view it in this way, we can kind of let ourselves off the hook a little bit of feeling like we have to go back and understand the source and the meaning and drill deeper into every emotion, thought, and reaction that we've ever had. It can be a really daunting task. And I think there are certainly times and places where it's useful to have that kind of understanding, to kind of map out those past patterns and everything. But I think beyond that, it's really useful to realize that these sensations are just biochemicals going on in your body.
Yeah.
That just like when you drink a cup of coffee and you feel a little rush, it's because there's chemicals working their way through your system, and that those chemicals have a half-life. And the reason, I'll give you one example of like why it actually matters to just have this simple awareness, is that simply by becoming aware that the feelings are sensations and chemicals, and that they're not necessarily telling you something super important, can allow you to come back to baseline, can allow them to work their way through their system sooner. So going with the same example of coffee I just gave, like, Sean, imagine if, all of a sudden, your heart started racing and your palms started sweating.
Usually happens when we talk like this, actually. Yeah.
Right. Well,
don't tell Katie.
Right. It can happen, to a lot of people. And like, we don't know where it comes from most of the time. Yeah. And it's that not knowing that triggers the anxiety. That's what triggers the meta level of thinking about the thinking. Now it's like, okay, I'm not just nervous. I'm not just having these palpitations or whatever. I'm nervous about being nervous, because I don't know where this is coming from, and I don't know what's going to fix it. And that's what leads us into these spirals. And the very act of ruminating on the worry, paradoxically, is what's perpetuating it. So, but if I had told you, Sean, you just drank 2 cups of coffee, in 6 seconds, I think what would happen would be you would still be feeling the increased heart rate, the pupil dilation, like all these things would still be happening in your body, but an important difference would have taken place. You would say to me, oh yeah, you're right. And then in 30 minutes and 60 minutes and 90 minutes, you'd be feeling better and lighter and more at ease, because the chemicals would naturally work their way through your system instead of being artificially recirculated by your own brain.